Welcome back to the Tom Sense Show. This is the hour where we cut through the spin and deliver the straight truth that the mainstream media is desperate to hide from you. Before we dive into the headlines tonight, a quick reminder to everyone watching. This show is interactive. If you have a real, serious question about any of these stories, do not wait until the end. Drop it right now in the chat on YouTube or over on X, and if it is worth answering, I will take it right here in the middle of the news. Let us get straight into it. We start tonight with the ultimate cry of the corporate media giant. The Walt Disney Company and ABC have officially filed a federal lawsuit against the Federal Communications Commission in Washington, D.C. Why are they running to a federal judge? Because back in April, the FCC issued an unprecedented directive forcing 8 local television stations owned by ABC to apply for early license renewals. The media elite are in a complete meltdown. They are claiming this is a targeted, unconstitutional campaign by the Trump administration to punish them. ABC is specifically arguing that FCC Chairman Brendan Carr is weaponizing his regulatory power because late-night host Jimmy Kimmel spends his time making nasty, partisan jokes about President Trump. Now, ABC is begging for a temporary restraining order to stop the license reviews, claiming the government is trying to send a chilling message to the entire industry. Let us look at the plain reality here. For years, these massive media conglomerates have used their public airwaves to push one-sided political narratives and attack half the country. But the second a regulatory agency decides to actually look at their licenses and see if they are serving the public interest, they sprint to court crying about their feelings. If you want to hold a public broadcast license, you actually have to meet the standards of the public. If Disney is so worried that a simple, routine review of their broadcast licenses will expose how little they care about serving local communities, maybe they should spend less time funding partisan late-night activists and more time doing their actual jobs. Up next, we go to Alaska, where voters are heading to the polls for a Senate primary that has turned into absolute chaos. This is one of the strangest political stories you will ever hear. The incumbent Republican Senator Dan S. Sullivan is running for a third term to represent the great state of Alaska. But when voters look at their ballots, they are seeing double. A retired schoolteacher and registered Republican named Dan J. Sullivan Jr. has put his name on the ballot as well. That is right, 2 candidates with the exact same name running for the exact same Senate seat. President Donald Trump saw what was happening and stepped in to clear things up. On Tuesday morning, President Trump posted a clear warning on social media telling Alaska voters to watch out for the imposter Dan Sullivan. Now, why does this matter so much? Because Alaska has a bizarre open primary system where all 16 candidates appear on one single ballot, and the top 4 move on to a ranked choice general election in November. The Democrats see this confusion as their golden ticket. Former Democratic Representative Mary Peltola is running, and national Democrats are pouring millions of dollars into the state because they want to flip this seat and take control of the Senate. The institutional left loves these confusing, ranked choice voting games because it is the only way they can win in deep red states. They want you confused, they want the ballot cluttered, and they want the Republican vote split. But Alaskans are smarter than that, and President Trump just blew their little game wide open. We turn now to a grave situation in the Middle East. A civilian merchant mariner was killed in the southern corridor of the Strait of Hormuz. The Liberian-flagged cargo ship, the Minoan Dignity, was struck by an unidentified projectile. According to the United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operations, the attack caused severe damage to the engine room, and the Omani Coast Guard had to launch a rescue operation to assist the crew. This fatal attack took place just one day after the 60-day negotiating ceasefire between the United States and Iran expired on Monday without any permanent agreement. Immediately after the strike, Iranian negotiator Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf made his position clear. He declared that Iran will keep this critical waterway closed until the United States fully lifts its naval blockade, removes all economic sanctions, and releases frozen Iranian funds. International shipping organizations, including Intercargo, have strongly condemned this brutal attack, warning that civilian seafarers are facing extreme dangers in the Persian Gulf. This is the tragic consequence of dealing with rogue regimes from a position of weakness. The Strait of Hormuz is one of the most vital shipping lanes in the entire world, and a civilian worker has lost his life because of this ongoing aggression. The United States must stand firm against this blatant extortion. Giving in to Iran's demands and releasing billions of dollars in frozen assets will only fund more weapons and more attacks on global shipping. We must protect our maritime interests and make it clear that there is a heavy price to pay for targeting civilian vessels. Back at home, the federal bureaucracy is in an absolute panic because the Trump administration is actually holding federal employees accountable. The National Treasury Employees Union is crying foul after Stephen Wheeler, a prominent labor leader and data scientist at the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, was suspended and put on administrative leave. Wheeler has been leading the charge against the agency's restructuring plan and its return-to-office mandates. He wants federal workers to stay home forever, and now that the administration is enforcing basic workplace rules, the union is calling it a retaliatory campaign. The union claims the agency is refusing to give details about its investigation, calling it a fishing expedition designed to force union leaders to resign. This comes after a federal appeals court blocked attempted mass layoffs at the agency back in June, which is currently being run by acting director Mark Paoletta. Let us look at the reality that every working American can see. If you work in the private sector and you refuse to come to the office, you get fired. You do not get to call a giant union to shield you from the consequences of not doing your job. But these federal bureaucrats believe they have a lifetime right to sit at home on the taxpayer's dime. Acting Director Mark Paoletta is doing exactly what the American people elected this administration to do, which is cleaning out the deep state, restoring accountability, and making sure public servants actually work for the public. Down in Florida, the closed primary elections are underway under a newly redrawn congressional map, and it is causing absolute chaos for the state's Democrats. The biggest battle is happening in Florida's 20th congressional district, where veteran Democrat Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz is trying to keep her grip on power. Under the new map, signed by Republican Governor Ron DeSantis, Wasserman Schultz's old district was moved into a historically black area in Broward County. Instead of stepping aside, she decided to run in this new district anyway, and local black activists are furious. They are pointing out the obvious, arguing that having a white establishment liberal take this seat completely dilutes minority representation in Congress. She is now facing several prominent black candidates, including the famous rapper Luther Campbell. Wasserman Schultz is trying to defend her record, but this primary has exposed the massive, hypocritical rifts inside the Democratic Party. The Democrats love to talk about representation and identity politics when they are lecturing the rest of the country. But the very second their own personal power is on the line, all of those high-minded principles go straight out the window. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is proving that to the establishment left, the only identity that actually matters is their own survival. They will happily push aside the very communities they claim to champion if it means keeping their seat in Washington, D.C. Finally, we look at the election drama unfolding in Africa. Zambia's Electoral Commission has declared incumbent President Hakainde Hichilema the winner of the presidential election, giving him another 5-year term. The official results claim Hichilema won 61% of the vote, defeating his main challenger, Brian Mundubile, who took 38%. But this election has been hit by massive political turmoil and chaos. The voting commission had to temporarily stop counting the ballots because of serious allegations that ballot papers were being stolen. Since the vote, the government has arrested several major opposition leaders, accusing them of plotting with foreigners to set up illegal military training camps. The main challenger, Brian Mundubile, has actually fled the country into exile, claiming that the military raided his home and opened fire on his family. Even the local Catholic bishops have raised deep concerns about the absolute lack of integrity in this election. This is yet another example of what happens when democratic institutions are weaponized to crush political opponents. While globalist organizations in the West love to praise these foreign leaders, the actual people on the ground are watching their democratic process get dismantled. When you arrest the opposition, stop the vote count, and force your opponents to flee the country, you are not winning an election, you are running a regime. The international community needs to stop turning a blind eye to this kind of corruption just because the leader in power says the right things to Western elites. That is our show for this hour. I am Tom Sense, and we will be right here keeping them honest. See you next time.